Welcome back to Breakthrough Weekly. I'm your host, Monica Pelayo. If you're returning, thank you for being here again and for continuing this journey with me. And if this is your first time listening, welcome. I'm really glad you're here. This podcast is a space where we could talk about healing, awareness, identity, and the internal shifts that create real transformation, not through pressure or perfection, but through understanding how the mind actually works. Before we begin, I want to remind you to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. Each week, we explore the beliefs, patterns, and subconscious dynamics that shape how we live, lead, and relate to ourselves. I also want to share a quick note before we dive in. I originally wrote this reflection at the end of last year, and as I revisit now here in February, what stands out most is how much of this integration is still unfolding. This isn't just a reflection on what has passed, it's an understanding that healing continues to reveal itself through lived experience over time. Today's episode is titled A Reflection on Healing, Awareness, and Personal Growth. As I reflect on the year behind me and the integration that's happening now, I've been thinking deeply about what healing has truly meant for me. Not as a concept, but through lived experience over time. For a long time, I didn't have language for what I was experiencing. I wasn't fully aware of how much my character, my actions, my reactions were shaped by my upbringing. I moved through life doing what I thought I was supposed to do, yet internally, I felt disconnected. From the outside, my life looked stable. I looked successful. Internally, it felt empty. That inner disconnect is what led me to start searching for awareness and answers. Several years ago, I chose to get certified in hypnosis because I wanted to understand my own mind first. I wanted to understand why I kept repeating patterns I deeply wanted to break. I wanted to understand why beliefs formed early in life were still influencing my decisions as an adult, even when everything looked fine on the surface. As I moved through that learning, I applied everything inward. Awareness came gradually, and so did the changes. Nothing about this process was dramatic or instant. It was lived, intentional, and built over time. Along the way, I learned to use self-hypnosis as a way to pause and reflect more deeply. It helped me create awareness, to see what was beneath the surface, understand it, and work with it consciously. This process was never about forcing change or bypassing anything. It was about getting to the root, addressing what I found there, and allowing real shifts to unfold through lived experiences. Over time, what began as a personal healing became something I felt called to share. Not because I had everything figured out, but because I was experiencing real change, understanding myself in a way I never had before. That's when something became clear to me. Healing rarely comes in one dramatic moment. It unfolds through micro shifts, subtle, intentional changes that gradually reveal a different version of yourself. The version who stops abandoning herself. The version who stops apologizing for existing. The version who begins moving out of survival and into truth. Looking back now, with more distance and more clarity, I can see exactly where those shifts took place. I stepped out of old patterns. I released beliefs that no longer matched who I was becoming. I allowed support where I once carried everything alone. I chose alignment where I once chose accommodation. These changes came from understanding foundational principles of how the mind works, principles taught by my teacher, Marisa Peer, and applied through this work to support lasting change. Before exploring these principles, there's one core function we need to understand. The primary function of the mind? Survival. The brain's primary role is survival. Your mind is constantly scanning for danger, searching for threats, and doing everything it can to keep you alive. What most people don't realize is that the brain does not distinguish between physical danger and emotional danger. A breakup, a layoff, setting a boundary, starting a new habit, choosing a new direction, stepping into a new identity, changing the way you show up. To the mind, each of these experiences is evaluated through the same internal question. Will this keep me safe? Or will this put me at risk? The survival function influences beliefs, reactions, and patterns. It explains why growth can feel uncomfortable, even when this is something you consciously want. From here, the foundational principles of the mind begin to make sense. The principles I'm about to share are taught by Marisa Peer as part of the Rapid Transformational Therapy training. They form the foundation of the broader rules of the mind framework and help explain how the subconscious operates. Understanding these foundations explain how beliefs form, why patterns repeat it, and how internal narratives can be reshaped to support meaningful change. Principle 1. Your mind does exactly what it thinks you want it to do. For a long time, the instruction I gave my mind was shaped by being good, perfect, and strong values, deeply tied to my cultural and religious upbringing. Strength meant handling everything on my own. Being good meant staying agreeable. Perfection meant having everything figured out before moving forward. My mind followed that instruction precisely. The mind doesn't judge the instruction, it simply executes the belief. Over time, I began updating that message. I allowed myself to learn as I went. I spoke up and said no without being unkind. I stopped waiting for certainty before taking action. Building my business and showing up publicly became part of that shift. I move, learn, adjust, and continue without needing everything to be perfect. As I became more intentional, I gave my mind clear instruction. I aligned my actions with clarity, freedom, and self-trust, and my internal system adjusted to support that direction. Principle 2. Your mind responds to the pictures you hold and the words you use. For much of my life, my mind stayed busy creating stories, especially around conflict, rejection, or emotional pain. I replayed conversations before they happened. I imagined outcomes before there was evidence. As I became aware of this, I started shifting what I focused on internally. I stopped feeding stories that kept me emotionally activated. I redirected my attention toward the outcomes I wanted to experience. As my internal narrative changed, my responses changed with it. I stopped making situations about me. I stayed grounded. I responded with clarity rather than assumption. This is when something clicked. This is when I understood how powerful this work would be in my own healing. As the internal images and narratives shifted, my external experience shifted with them. Principle 3. Your mind loves what is familiar and resists what is unfamiliar. This is why change can feel uncomfortable even when you want it. The most of life, familiarity looked like security, stable income, predictable outcomes, and avoiding uncertainty. This year I chose differently. I stepped away from job security. I trusted myself to build something new. I relied on resourcefulness instead of certainty. At the same time, I broke relational patterns that once felt natural, people-pleasing, avoiding conflict, and staying quiet to keep the peace. Familiar did not mean healthy. It simply meant known. Over time, I practiced something new. I showed my mind that boundaries, self-trust, new habits, and higher standards could feel safe. With repetition, what once felt uncomfortable began to feel natural. One of the most emotional breakthroughs for me came through moments that seemed simple on the surface, asking for help or allowing support when it was offered. Each time my body reacted before my mind could catch up. Emotion rose quickly. There were moments where I broke down simply because I was no longer carrying everything alone. I saw this when I had to ask for a payment plan. I saw it when a friend offered to support me during a family emergency. Being helped, being acknowledged, being seen. For so long, my mind associated strength with doing everything myself. Over time, I practiced something new. I allowed support without attaching my worth to it. With repetition, my mind learned that support is safe, that being seen does not create danger, that strength can include receiving. Those moments were quiet, emotional, and deeply transformative. One of the most meaningful shifts I made was moving from people-pleasing to unapologetic self-respect. This wasn't about being harsh or dismissive, it was about clarity. For years, I lived in a constant state of apology. Every time I abandoned myself to keep others comfortable, I was the one who paid the price. I silenced my needs, I diminished my truth, I made myself smaller. Today, I move differently. I communicate with ease, I honor my needs, I accept who I am without shrinking or explaining. Some people resonate with this version of me, others do not. What matters is that I live in alignment with my values, my truth, and my peace. And I'm proud of the woman I am becoming. For the first time in my life, I'm genuinely at peace with the woman I've become. And that peace continues to deepen as I integrate what I've learned. For years, I carried regret, judgment, and self-criticism. Today, I meet myself with grace and compassion. My life isn't perfect. There are still moments that feel heavy or triggering. The difference now is how I respond. I don't avoid what comes up. I don't bury it or pretend it's fine. I sit with it. I listen to what it's pointing to. What happened is part of my story. The meaning I choose to carry forward is where change happens. Healing does not require perfection. Awareness is the doorway. Transformation begins when you choose to act what you see. Healing lives in that shift. The moment you say, I don't do that anymore, this is who I am becoming. As you continue moving forward this year, I invite you to notice where awareness has already arrived and where you choose differently because of it. That is where real change lives. If this reflection resonated with you, it may be because something in you is ready to shift. You don't have to do this alone. Through my work, I support clients in identifying the subconscious beliefs and patterns that keep them stuck and in creating the internal shifts needed to move forward with clarity, confidence, and alignment. If you're ready to explore this work more deeply, the next step is a free discovery call. You can schedule yours at thethrivingpathways.com/appointment. Thank you for staying with me until the end of this episode of the Breakthrough Weekly. If this conversation supported you, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss future sessions. I appreciate you being here, and I hope to see you again in our next episode.